We live in interesting times.
For the headlines.
U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said he wants to build a global coalition against Iran during urgent consultations in the Middle East.
Protesters fearing an erosion of Hong Kong's legal autonomy blocked access to a government office building Monday and plan more demonstrations to draw the attention of leaders attending the G20 summit this week.
And as the U.S. government takes the lead in an investigation into last Friday's plane crash in Hawaii that killed 11 people with no survivors, speculations and opinions as to the cause of the accident are already circulating, especially by those who have experience with flying airplanes and even skydiving. Our Hawaii correspondent Mio Acenas will give us the details later.
An ASEAN member states declares Bangkok declaration on combating marine debris in the region.
Amalma Angeles, wherever you're watching from around the world, thank you very much for joining us.
We welcome our viewers here in the Philippines and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Sam Cepeda.
And now to the news. First off, members of the Iranian parliament shouted death to America amid heightened tensions with the United States after Iran shot down an unmanned U.S. drone in the Persian Gulf last week. Also, Sunday, a top Iranian military commander warned that any conflict with Iran would have uncontrollable consequences across the region and endanger the lives of U.S. forces. Major General Ghulam Ali Rashid's remarks, published by the semi-official Fars news agency, were made while addressing Iran's powerful Revolutionary Guards Corps during a field visit to a command center for Iranian radars and missile systems. The U.S. administration is aiming to cripple Iran's economy and force policy changes by reimposing sanctions, including on Iranian oil exports. President Trump also dangled the prospect of eventually becoming an unlikely best friend of America's longtime Middle Eastern adversary.
The fact is, we're not going to have Iran have a nuclear weapon. And when they agree to that, they are going to have a wealthy country. They're going to be so happy, and I'm going to be their best friend. I hope that happens. I hope that happens, but it may not.
The regional tensions have prompted major international carriers, including Saudi Arabia's state airline Saudia, to divert flight routes away from the Gulf of Oman and the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration barred U.S. registered aircraft from operating over parts of the Persian Gulf.
Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said he wants to build a global coalition against Iran during urgent consultations in the Middle East. Pompeo made the remarks before boarding a flight to the Middle East, where he will speak with officials in Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates about the situation in Iran.
We'll be talking with them about how to make sure that we are all strategically aligned and how we can build out a global coalition. Coalition not only throughout the Gulf states, but in Asia and in Europe that understands this challenge as it is prepared to push back against the world's largest state sponsor of terror. You'll see, too, that our campaign that began when President Trump took office will continue. On Monday, there'll be a significant set of new sanctions, and the world should know that we will continue to make sure it's understood that this effort that we've engaged in to deny Iran the resources to foment terror, to build out their nuclear weapon system, to build out their missile program, we are going to deny them the resources they need to do that, thereby keeping American interests and American people safe all around the world.
But even as Pompeo delivered his tough talk, he echoed President Donald Trump and Vice President Mike Pence in saying the U.S. is prepared to negotiate with Iran without preconditions in a bid to ease tensions.
We're prepared to negotiate with no preconditions. They know precisely how to find us, and I am confident that at the very moment they're ready to truly engage with us, we'll be able to begin these conversations. I'm looking forward to that day. That the President has said repeatedly we want a brighter future for the people of the Islamic Republic of Iran. Those negotiations are the gateway. That's how we'll ultimately achieve this.
Meanwhile, it was a week of topsy-turvy pronouncements on U.S. policy toward Iran that careened between the bellicose, the conciliatory, and back again after Iran shot down an American military drone and boasted it would not bow to Washington's pressure. Trump initially said Iran had made a very big mistake and that it was hard to believe that shooting down the drone on Thursday was not intentional. Take a listen.
Oh, absolutely. When I came here, Iran was in 14 to 18 different sites of confliction. They were extremely hostile. They were hostile when they signed the deal. They were screaming death to America. And I think probably Iran made a mistake. I would imagine it was a general or somebody that made a mistake in shooting that drone down. And fortunately, that drone was unarmed.
Do you feel like there are members of your administration who want?
Say it?
Are you saying you think it wasn't intentional to strike the drone?
I don't know. I find it hard to believe it was intentional, if you want to know the truth. I think that it could have been somebody who was loose and stupid that did it. But we'll be able to report back, and you'll understand exactly what happened. But it was a very foolish move. That I can tell you.
Now, on Saturday, Trump reversed himself and claimed that Iran had acted knowingly.
But I didn't like the idea of them knowingly shooting down an unmanned drone.
But Trump also said over the weekend that he appreciated Iran's decision to not shoot down a manned U.S. spy plane. And he opined about eventually becoming Iran's best friend if Tehran ultimately agrees to abandon its drive to build nuclear weapons.
The fact is, we're not going to have Iran have a nuclear weapon. And when they agree to that, they are going to have a wealthy country. They're going to be so happy, and I'm going to be their best friend. I hope that happens. I hope that happens, but it may not.
Then Trump's national security advisor, John Bolton, stepped in Sunday with a blunt warning from Jerusalem, where he was traveling.
Neither Iran nor any other hostile actor should mistake U.S. prudence and discretion for weakness. No one has granted them a hunting license in the Middle East. As President Trump said on Friday, our military is rebuilt, new, and ready to go, by far the best in the world. Sanctions are biting, and more added last night. Iran can never have nuclear weapons, not against the USA and not against the world. And as he made clear yesterday, referring to his earlier remarks, the President said, "I just stopped the strike from going forward at this time."
The downing of the unmanned aircraft marked a new high in the rising tensions between the United States and Iran. The Trump administration has vowed to combine a maximum pressure campaign of economic sanctions with the buildup of American forces in the region following the U.S. withdrawal from the 2015 nuclear deal between Iran and world powers. U.S. military cyber forces on Thursday also launched a strike against Iranian military computer systems, according to U.S. officials. Officials said the cyber attacks disabled Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps computer systems that controlled its rocket and missile launchers. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres says he's worried about the situation in the Persian Gulf.
In relation to the Gulf, we are worried, as I said. It's very important to avoid any escalation, and I strongly hope that the situation will be contained because, as I said, and I repeat, the world does not really need a major confrontation in the Gulf.
Iran denied it was hit by a U.S. cyber attack as Washington was due to tighten sanctions on Tehran in a standoff sparked by the U.S. withdrawal from a nuclear deal. U.S. President Donald Trump called off a planned retaliatory military strike Friday after Iran said it had shot down an American surveillance drone the previous day near the strategic Strait of Hormuz. Later, U.S. media reports said Trump ordered a retaliatory cyber attack against Iranian missile control systems and a spy network after the drone was shot down. But on Monday, Iranian Telecommunications Minister Mohammad Javad Azari Jaromi said no cyber attack against his country had ever succeeded. He acknowledged that Iran has been facing cyber terrorism such as Stuxnet and unilateralism such as sanctions naming a virus believed to have been engineered by Israel and the U.S. to damage nuclear facilities in Iran. Iran last week warned that any U.S. attack would see Washington's interests in the Middle East go up in flames.
To other news now, as the U.S. government takes the lead in an investigation into last Friday's airplane crash in Hawaii that killed 11 people, with no survivors, speculations and opinions as to the cause of the accident are already circulating, especially by those who have experience with flying airplanes and even skydiving. Hawaii correspondent Mio Acenas has more.
With summer officially underway, Hawaii residents and businesses were looking forward to another busy and hopefully profitable tourist season. But first, they have to deal with a tragic accident involving a skydiving airplane that crashed here in the north shore of Oahu.
When you're up there at, I believe, 10,000 feet, there's a lot of responsibility on the pilot, a lot of responsibility on the wellness of the plane.
At around 6:30 p.m. Hawaii time, a twin-engine plane known as a Beechcraft 65 King Air crashed after taking off in a grassy area near the edge of the Dillingham Airfield and Farrington Highway. Witnesses nearby said they saw an explosion and flying debris when the airplane hit the ground, while others far away as Haleiwa to the east said they could see a column of black smoke. The Honolulu Fire Department arrived at the scene and later put out the blaze. After evaluating the situation, Fire Chief Manuel Neves announced that there were no survivors and noted that family members of those on board were on the ground when the crash happened and may have seen the plane go down. Neves even described the event as one of the most tragic he ever experienced in his 40 years of service. At first, authorities estimated that 9 people perished in the crash. However, on the following Saturday morning, an official from the Federal Aviation Administration, or FAA, updated that their investigation showed 11 people on board. Most of them were employees of the Oahu Parachute Center, a skydiving company operating from the airfield. Hawaii's Department of Transportation indicated that the federal government was leading the investigation on the crash. By the time Eagle News arrived at the scene, representatives from the National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, were already at the crash site taking a first-hand look at the wreckage. 24 hours has passed since the accident, and as you can see, the flowers have already been offered here to pay respects to those who perished. We later spoke with Agassi, who is a licensed small airplane pilot, on the possibilities why the skydiving airplane came down that Friday night.
Most likely, I would assume engine failure during takeoff. And maybe they don't have any time to react. I don't know, because like during takeoff, you got a lot of things going on. You are monitoring your airspeed, you are talking to the radio, you are looking around if there's any traffic. It's multitasking on departure. So if that happens to you, then you gotta react quick.
We also spoke with Henry, who went skydiving with friends several years back at the same location of the accident. He shares his thoughts on what might have happened.
The experience of skydiving for the first time is one that you kind of have to force yourself to experience, no one really ever decides to go and say, you know, I want to go skydive today. This sounds like a fun thing. It's something you really put a lot of thought into, but it's one of those, you really just want to try it. To my recollection, there was very little interaction with the pilot. We were more prepared for the jump than we were for the actual plane ride, and if any precautions were needed for the actual flight itself. We were not given any introductions or any warnings or any, if something were to happen, we were not given any of that.
Several of the victims have already been identified by family and friends through social media. Meanwhile, Dillingham Airfield will be closed indefinitely, affecting other business establishments inside. To recall, a similar tragedy took place in December 1981 when the plane, also a twin-engine Beechcraft, crashed into the waters of Pearl Harbor, killing 11 people. The group of skydivers was planning to parachute into the Aloha Stadium. From the north shore of Oahu Island of Hawaii, I'm Yua Senas, 1 with 25.
Leaders of recent protests in Hong Kong say they plan more demonstrations, hoping to draw the attention of world leaders attending the Group of 20 summit.
We want to have an assembly to urge the international community to give stress on Beijing that we need democracy. In this month, millions of people participated in our march, and the will of people is clear. We don't want the extradition law. We want the independent investigation committee to investigate the excessive violence of police. The police has to take the responsibility of that. And we also want to urge the government to stop prosecuting the peaceful protesters.
The leaders of the Civil Human Rights Front said they hope the world leaders in Osaka, Japan this week will hear the protesters' concerns over the weakening of the city's legal autonomy from mainland China. They spoke Monday near the city government's headquarters, where a few protesters remained, though the offices in the building had reopened. Mass protests in recent weeks have occurred in Hong Kong over legislation that was seen as increasing Beijing's control and over police treatment of the protesters.
A Chinese official said the ongoing protests in Hong Kong will not be addressed during the upcoming G20 summit in Japan. During a press briefing in Beijing, Zhang Jun, China's assistant foreign minister and coordinator of G20 affairs, reiterated China's support for a contentious extradition bill proposed by the Hong Kong government. Take a look.
可以肯定地告诉你 ，G20 不会讨论香港问题，我们也不会允许 G20 讨论香港问题。第二呢，香港特区政府啊，为了维护社会公平正义，弥补法律制度上的缺陷，采取了一系列的举措。 对此呢，我们认为是完全必要的。中央政府是支持特区政府所采取的举措。
Hong Kong has been rocked by major protests for the past 2 weeks over legislative proposals that many view as eroding the territory's judicial independence and, more broadly, as a sign of Chinese government efforts to chip away at the city's freedoms. Zhang called the bills, which would expand the scope of criminal suspect transfers to include mainland China, Taiwan, and Macau, an attempt to safeguard the fair justice of the society and to block the loopholes in the legal system.
A U.S. President As U.S. President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping are about to meet at the G20 summit, China's Commerce Ministry Vice Minister Wang Shouwen urged G20 members to take collective actions to support multilateralism and free trade during summit. He also said discussions should be a two-way street. Without directly naming the U.S., Wang said an individual country is threatening the world economy by slapping tariffs on its trading partners.
个别国家奉行单边主义和保护主义，滥用贸易救济措施和国家安全例外，对贸易伙伴肆意加征关税，可以说构成了对全球贸易投资和世界经济增长的严重的威胁。G20成员是世界主要经济体的代表，有责任、有能力采取共同行动，旗帜鲜明地支持多边主义和自由贸易。
He said China-U.S. trade talks must involve mutual respect, equality, mutual benefit, and compromise while respecting the rules of the World Trade Organization.
中国对中美经贸磋商的这个原则是要相互尊重、平等互利，要相向而行，要符合 WTO 的规则。 这个相互尊重，就是要各自要尊重对方的国家的主权；平等互利，就是大家的磋商要是在平等的基础上，要达成的协议要对双方都有利；相向而行，就是要双方都要做出妥协和让步，而不只是一方。那么，因为中美都是 WTO 的重要的成员。 我们的协议也必须呢符合 WTO 的规则。那么现在呢，我们双方继续在为这个沟通呢进行讨论。
China and the U.S. are in a stalemate after 11 rounds of talks over trade and technology issues that have led to both sides raising tariffs on hundreds of billions of each other's goods.
Tens of thousands of people on Sunday attended an election night celebration after a repeated vote in Istanbul made opposition candidate Ekrem İmamoğlu mayor-elect of Turkey's largest city. İmamoğlu spoke to his supporters after unofficial returns showed him more than 707,000 votes ahead of his opponent, who conceded defeat earlier in the night. İmamoğlu told the cheering crowd that his work for Istanbul would start tomorrow and promised to bring morals to politics. Supporters chanted with the Republican People's Party candidate as he led a chorus of his campaign catchphrase, "Everything will be great." İmamoğlu narrowly won a previous mayoral election on March 31st, but Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's Justice and Development Party, or AKP, challenged the vote. Turkey's electoral board annulled the results after weeks of partial recounts. İmamoğlu served 18 days as mayor and was stripped of the post with the board's order for another election.
İşimize başlıyoruz. İstanbul için çok çalışacağız.
And the news continues here on Eagle News International. We'll be right back.
Health is our most important asset.
Thai Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha has expressed the meeting's sorrow to Cambodia, where a building collapse on Saturday killed 17 people and injured 24 others.
In addition, in order to respond to emergencies and disasters, ASEAN, about a few days ago, Cambodia had an incident where a building collapsed, and we extend our condolences to the lives lost. So to respond to disasters, ASEAN leaders launched the satellite warehouse under the Disaster Emergency Logistics System for ASEAN, or DELSA. And we have also included the ASEAN Center of Military Medicine as a subsidiary body under the ASEAN Defense Ministers meeting in Annex 1 of the ASEAN Charter. Both centers are located in Thailand.
Cambodian rescuers continue to comb through the rubble of a collapsed 7-story building, with the bodies of 17 construction workers recovered and a further 24 pulled out injured. Workers said the unfinished building in the coastal city of Sihanoukville, which came down early Saturday, had doubled as their housing, with the crew spending nights on the second floor. Yun Min, the governor of Phra Sihanouk province, said the building was owned by a Chinese investor who leased land for a condominium, one of many Chinese projects in the thriving beach resort. Provincial authorities said in a statement that 4 Chinese nationals involved in the construction have been detained while an investigation into the collapse is carried out. Leaders of the Association of the Southeast Asian Nations on Saturday formally declared a war against marine debris.
ASEAN agreed to focus on the issue of marine debris, which has a widespread impact on the well-being, the health and hygiene of people, as well as on marine animals and resources. The summit, therefore, adopted the Bangkok Declaration on Combating Marine Debris in the ASEAN region, which demonstrates ASEAN's commitment to addressing the problem of marine debris in a serious and sustainable manner by supporting innovation and ideas, building capacity in research and the application of scientific knowledge, as well as encouraging the involvement of all stakeholders. And we had a comprehensive discussion on this matter.
Thailand, which is ASEAN chair this year, whose sustainability as its theme for this summit, with delegates getting recycled paper notebooks and tote bags. In his opening remarks, Thai PM Prayut Chan-o-cha said he hoped the theme will help ASEAN realize a people-centered community that leaves no one behind and looks to the future, as well as enhance the regional bloc's strategic value. President Duterte was dismayed over the delay in the passage of the Code of Conduct in the South China Sea, presidential spokesperson Salvador Panelo said Sunday. The palace confirms that President Rodrigo Roa Duterte attended the 34th ASEAN Summit retreat today, June 23, where he expressed concern and disappointment over the delay in the negotiations for a code of conduct in the South China Sea, Panelo said in a statement. He said President Duterte had explained that there would be a higher probability of maritime incidents and a greater chance for miscalculations that could go out of control if it will take longer for ASEAN members to conclude the COC. Panelo said the president will continue to push for the full and effective implementation of the 2002 Declaration of the Conduct of Parties in the South China Sea, the Philippines being the country coordinator for ASEAN-China dialogue relations. He said President Duterte also urged fellow ASEAN leaders to remain united and steadfast in protecting in protecting time-honored principles of international law.
In other news in the ASEAN region, a strong earthquake struck Monday in Indonesia's Banda Sea, but authorities said there's no tsunami threat. The U.S. Geological Survey said the magnitude 7.3 quake was centered 208 kilometers below the Earth's surface. It was felt in parts of Indonesia and in East Timor's capital Dili, but there were no reports of damage. Indonesia's geophysics agency said the deep quake didn't cause a tsunami. The Banda Sea quake was recorded minutes after a 6.1 trembler in a thinly populated area 233 kilometers west of Papua province's Abepura town at a depth of 20 kilometers. Rama Triyono, Indonesia's head of Earthquake and Tsunami Center, said the Papua quake was followed by several smaller aftershocks, but there is no immediate report of major damage or injuries.
Meanwhile, the large quake was felt across Australia's most northern city, Darwin, where many people evacuated high-rise buildings. Office workers were seen throughout Darwin outside buildings after the quake rattled the city for around 5 minutes. Part of the city's central business district was evacuated due to the tremors, but there are no reports of damage according to local media.
Oh, it just started shaking slightly and then it got worse, and then the doors started rattling and the glasses all rattling, and then we just got asked to leave.
We were just in the shops and the shop started shaking and all the clothes and jewellery started shaking in the shop, so it was a bit weird.
Just the entire building, everything you're standing on is just trembling along with yourself, and it's amazing what Mother Nature can do, how insignificant it makes you feel.
Basically sitting there eating our lunch and the building started to shake, so as normal you still sit there because you think it's going to go away. Then it came back again, got worse. I just looked at one of my fellow employers and I went, yep, she went, let's get out of here. I said, yep, I'm with you. So I'm just worried about my lunch, someone might be eating it.
Yeah, it's going to be okay.
So yeah, but I never felt anything like it. I've lived here just about all my life. I've never felt anything like that. It's the most intensive one I can remember.
Meanwhile, temperatures were climbing on Sunday as Europe braced for a blistering heat wave, with the mercury set to hit 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit as summer kicks in on the back of a wave of hot air from North Africa. Europeans are set to bake in what forecasters are warning will likely be record-breaking temperatures for June, with the mercury set to peak midweek. Hot and humid nights can be expected, according to officials, with many issuing guidelines for surviving the scorcher and local authorities and hospitals on high alert for a surge in cases of dehydration, heat stroke, and other weather-related conditions. They are also warning that the extreme heat could bring on violent storms. Spain's IMET weather agency issued a yellow alert for severe weather on Sunday, but said it expected the heat to peak later in the week, with temperatures soaring over 40 degrees Celsius, particularly inland. Britain's Met Office said it was particularly concerned that the heat wave could trigger violent storms and warned Britons to expect hot, humid, and unstable weather. It also issued a severe weather warning for heavy rain and thunderstorms on Monday and Tuesday, saying the highest temperatures were expected later in the week, rising into the 30s in central and southwest England. In Germany, meanwhile, forecasters said they were expecting a week-long heat wave with temperatures that could break the 2015 record of 40.3 degrees, blaming it on a front of warm air coming from the Sahara.
The death toll from a brain disease that has stricken children in India's Bihar state rose above 150 on Monday as a court ordered an investigation into the crisis. The country's Supreme Court also demanded the government explain that or what measure it has taken to combat the spread of acute encephalitis syndrome, or AES, a deadly disease that has been widely linked to the eating of unripened lychee fruit. Authorities said 152 children have died in districts across the eastern state, which 131 in 2 hospitals in Muzaffarpur, the epicenter of the outbreak. AES, or acute encephalitis syndrome, is an inflammation of the brain affecting mostly undernourished children under 10. The precise causes of the syndrome are not known, but experts say a toxin in unripe lychee fruit, which is grown abundantly in Muzaffarpur, causes blood sugar levels to plummet in malnourished children, affecting the brain. Symptoms include high fever, vomiting, and seizures. Experts say the deaths could be avoided if people had awareness and access to better health care and nourishment. Keep it up here on Eagle News International. We'll be right back.
Health is our most important asset.
Monday to Friday, 2 to 2:30 p.m.
International Monetary Fund Chief Christine Lagarde was in Malaysia to meet with Malaysian Central Bank Chief Shamsia Yunus. At a press conference after the meeting, Lagarde said that any efforts that would ease the trade tensions between the United States and China is most welcome.
Any positive move towards resolving the current trade tensions that we are seeing between the United States and China, among others, would be certainly welcome from the perspective of the global economy. At the IMF indicates that we could fear a reduction of 0.5% of global growth in 2020 as a result of the 25% tariff increase on all the trade that there is between the United States and China. And given the slower growth that we have observed this year, we certainly would hope that growth will not be reduced as a result of trade tensions.
She will also meet with Malaysia's Prime Minister Mahathir Mohamad to discuss various issues. Lagarde heads to Osaka, Japan for the upcoming G20 summit.
It's liftoff for businesses cashing in on our rocket-fueled enthusiasm for space and the 50th anniversary of the first man on the moon. As well as the usual trinkets, the makers of everything from watches, biscuits, drinks, and donuts are seeking to trace their personal lineage to Apollo 11. Here at the Houston Space Center, another generation of space enthusiasts are celebrating the 50th anniversary of the first man on the moon.
It means a lot to be here with my family and to have something, a souvenir, and to be here at a special place like this at a special time, celebrating the anniversary. A few shirts that are retro style, keeping in tune with the anniversary, and then also some coffee mugs. That's special. It's got the 50th anniversary.
Khan's family is here to enjoy a day out, and her husband Ken Khan remembers the astronauts who were so widely admired when he was a child.
They were like rock stars. You know, it was a big deal to be a pilot or an astronaut back then. I think much more so than nowadays. You know, every space shuttle launch was on TV. It was all, you know, everything stopped to watch that. You know, much more so than nowadays. So it's a childhood thing.
I'm holding the Apollo 11 anniversary patch, and I thought it was really cool because I created a backpack with all the different patches from NASA, and I saw this one, and it's definitely unique.
We have a lot of the Apollo jackets over on this side, many of the t-shirts, mission patches. I've got one of the lapel pins on here today. A lot of books that are selling. Anything that basically has Apollo on it, and 50 years ago, it has been a hot seller here.
Lego is never slow to jump on a popular bandwagon. It's created special designs for crazes from Star Wars to Harry Potter.
We created, in collaboration with NASA, the Lego Creator Expert Apollo 11 lunar lander. We have just noticed over the years that space is a passion point for both adults and children. So we're just excited to bring different space-themed sets in our portfolio and just to keep inspiring more kids to explore.
Bill Pierce, a marketing expert and professional at the University of California, Berkeley, says brands are trying to take advantage of the media coverage that the anniversary is getting.
Trying to tap into what's on people's minds. You're going to see a lot of stories in the news about the anniversary of the moon landing, and they're trying to position it as a way to keep their product relevant and out in front of their audiences. Now, if there's a really strong link between the product and the event, like I think Lego has done a great job, because that product is about discovery, that product is about sharing, especially across generations. You can see a grandfather and a grandchild playing with a new Lego set, you know, around thinking about going to the moon. That's a terrific product and brand link. I'm just failing to see the link in some of the other executions that I've seen.
South Korea's Ministry of Land and Transport and Ministry of Science and ICT hosted the world's first ever 5G-based autonomous driving car test bed. Take a look.
서울시에서 이루어지는 이 자율주행은 세계 최초로 상용화된 5G를 기반으로 해서 도로의 각종 시설물, 지나가는 사람 또는 자전거와도 소통을 통해서 보다 정확한 상황 판단이 되게 되어 있습니다. 여기까지.
자율주행에 반드시 필요한 차세대 지능형 교통 시스템과 정밀 도로 구축도 전국으로 확대되고 있습니다. 현재
The Seoul government and the Ministry of Land, Infrastructure and Transport jointly organized the festival in the Sangam under the theme of Future Transportation Connected by 5G. A total of 17 companies and institutions, including SK Telecom, KT Samsung Electronics, and Unmanned Solution, are participating in the public demonstration. In the first test operation, 7 5G self-driving vehicles, 4 buses, and 3 passenger cars run on a 1.1-kilometer long route in the Sangam district from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Super-fast internet on aircrafts using light to transmit signal may soon be a reality. Li-Fi, which is much faster than Wi-Fi, is one of the innovations in the aerospace industry on display at this year's Paris Air Show. Other advancements showcased include a low-cost civilian air ambulance and smart goggles designed to perfect the workflow of those in the aerospace industry. Drone simulators and fighter jets, just some of the latest tech on show at the Paris Air Show. This year, the French aviation company Dassault is hosting a virtual reality experience so that people see what it must be like to be in the pilot's seat of its iconic Rafale military aircraft. The latest technology takes efficiency in the aerospace industry or airspace industry to a new level. Toshiba's Dyna Edge Reality Smart Glasses promises to save time and energy for those who work in the airspace industry. Gabriel Karadmand, the AR glasses specialist at Dynabook, which is what Toshiba's PC range has been rebranded as, says the smart glasses lets the user work with objects and tools using augmented reality.
It's a new tool that will be equipping the frontline workers. That means that people on the production lines, in the maintenance fields and in the logistics will be able to have a new tool that they will use hands-free.
The augmented reality glasses allow the user to work with an exact replica of an object hands-free. Senior colleagues can also use the glasses to illustrate complex tasks in the augmented reality to new staff. Karadman says this saves money as planning, training and design can take place using AR instead of trial and error with real objects.
With very small resources today we are able to do tracking and make the objects that we would have to put to fix appear virtually.
Super fast internet while 30,000 feet above the ground will soon be possible for those who opt to fly in Li-Fi enabled aircrafts. Li-Fi uses light instead of radio waves to transmit information. The French company Lagarde, showcasing the capabilities of Li-Fi at the air show, claims Li-Fi is up to 100 times faster than Wi-Fi. Serge Berenger, a senior VP for research and technology at Lagarde, says the health concerns some people have about radio frequencies which allows standard Wi-Fi to function will not apply to Li-Fi.
So the Wi-Fi is working with a radio frequency, whereas the Li-Fi operates with light. So the difference is that when you use this technology, you're not anymore sensitive to radio frequency, which is impacting health for some people who are electrosensitive, but for some others it doesn't work. But if in an aircraft you have a lot of a Wi-Fi embedded in the aircraft, it will impact for sure the health of people in a longer term.
Berenger says with the rollout of 5G comes benefits like reducing the costs of satellite communication, which would mean that more and more bandwidth will be available for airlines and their passengers to use.
Today, the satellite communication that connects the aircraft to the rest of the world does have a limited bandwidth. But in the coming years, to support the 5G deployment, a large number of satellites will allow to reduce the cost of SATCOM and enable and support the deployment of 5G. In some countries, it will be faster than in others, but in the longer term, you will have a better and cheaper connection than it is today from the aircraft to the rest of the world.
A startup company, Technoplane, is displaying a model of its quadcopter, the Mini B, at the air show. This small aircraft is expected to be available for sale at a fraction of the cost of a helicopter of the same size, according to the founder of the company, Xavier Duterte. Duterte has high hopes for the Mini B and envisions one of its uses will be an air ambulance, which will make medical treatment more affordable and accessible.
So the Mini is a 4-seat helicopter or aircraft because we take off vertically and we cruise like a plane. It is very easy to drive because we have a steering wheel like a car, so the flight control system is very easy for anybody to understand. And it is a hybrid configuration like drones or multicopter, so it's a mix of fuel and electric propulsion. We want to do an air ambulance to decrease the price of a helicopter and to be the first civilian air ambulance to be deployed in a civilian emergency situation as an earthquake or tsunami, and to be deployed by civilian aircraft and be the first helicopter on the site.
Eagle News International will be right back.
Health is
NBA stars Russell Westbrook, Blake Griffin, Carmelo Anthony, Kemba Walker, and WNBA star Maya Moore, along with filmmaker Spike Lee, were the judges in the 15th edition of Kwai 154 Dunk Contest on Saturday in Paris. The contest was held at the Émile Antoine Stadium near the Eiffel Tower and saw slam dunk champion Isaiah Rivera get the most points for his dunks, some of which featured Detroit Pistons NBA player Blake Griffin. The Puerto Rican was up against three of the top dunkers in the world, beating Frenchman Guy Dupuy, American Jordan Sutherland, and Congolese Daniel Cabella to the victory.
Alors il y a des personnes qui se posent pour raconter la forme des trop. C'est 4 points. Fan s'il vous plaît.
Don't forget to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter and Tumblr. Also check out our boards on Pinterest and pictures on Instagram. I'm Sam Cepeda. Thanks for joining us.
And that's it for tonight's broadcast. I'm Alma Angeles and we're one with 25.